The Galactic Dominion arrived without warning, massive ships, blocking the skies over every major city. Their message, cold and absolute humanity, was unfit to govern itself. They declared Earth a restricted zone, its people bound by laws. They never agreed to. They promised peace and prosperity. But in truth, they only brought chains. Humans were forbidden from space travel, our weapons dismantled, our leaders reduced to puppets under dominion. Rule. Those who resisted were silenced, entire districts reduced to ash as a warning to the rest. Marcus Vance watched the fall of Washington from the ruins of a collapsed skyscraper, smoke rising in thick black columns, Dominion patrol ships hovering over the wreckage, scanning for survivors. The so-called negotiations had been a farce. Humanity had pleaded for independence, and the response had been swift and brutal. The Dominion did not negotiate, they dictated, they controlled, and they crushed anything that dared to stand in their way. For years, Earth became nothing more than a labor world. Humans, forced into servitude, working in Dominion-controlled factories, producing goods for an empire that saw them as nothing more than tools. Young men and women were taken from their families, shipped off-world to serve as workers on distant colonies. Few ever returned. Those who did came back broken, their spirits shattered, their eyes empty. Evelyn Carter worked in a research facility deep beneath what was once the City of London. A scientist before the invasion, she now spent her days repairing Dominion technology under constant surveillance. But in secret, she and others like her were studying the enemy, their ships, their weapons, their weaknesses. They knew humanity could not fight a war on the Dominion's terms, but they also knew that the invaders had one fatal flaw. They believed they had already won. They believed humanity was beaten. The first sparks of rebellion began in the shadows. Whispers passed in the dead of night. Old soldiers who refused to lay down their arms, scientists who smuggled blueprints out of Dominion labs, engineers who dismantled captured Dominion drones, piece by piece, learning their secrets. Every scrap of knowledge, every stolen weapon, every act of defiance was a step toward something greater. The first attack was small, a Dominion supply convoy, ambushed in the wastelands of what was once Nevada. A group of resistance fighters using salvaged weapons and homemade explosives destroyed the lead transport, vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The Dominion dismissed it as an isolated act of defiance, nothing more than criminals lashing out in desperation. But the resistance was just getting started. Across the planet, hidden networks formed, ordinary men and women training in secret, preparing for the day they would rise. Dominion patrols became more frequent, curfews stricter. Anyone caught with unauthorized technology was executed on sight. But it was too late. The fire had already been lit, and it was spreading fast. In a hidden bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Marcus stood before a map of Earth Dominion installations, marked in red resistance strongholds, in blue. The war had not yet begun, but it was coming. Humanity had suffered long enough. They had been underestimated, ignored, and trampled underfoot, but they were not broken, not defeated. And soon the galaxy would learn a truth it had long forgotten. Humanity did not surrender. Humanity did not kneel. And when pushed to the edge, humanity struck back. The underground chamber was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of old metal and scorched circuitry. Scattered around were crates filled with salvaged Dominion parts, energy cells stripped from crashed patrol ships, weapons once wielded by those who thought humanity was already conquered. Marcus Vance stood at the center of it all, his eyes scanning the gathered fighters, engineers, and scientists. Every single one of them had lost something to the Dominion, but none had given up. Evelyn Carter hunched over a battered console, her fingers gliding across the controls, lines of alien code flashing on the screen, stolen Dominion data, decrypted bit by bit, her voice steady as she spoke. We have cracked their encryption. We can listen in on their transmissions, track patrol movements, even disrupt their communications for brief windows of time. This is how we stay ahead. This is how we survive. A low murmur spread through the room. The resistance was still small but growing in strength every day across the planet. Others, like them, were gathering, arming themselves, learning, adapting. What had begun as scattered pockets of defiance was becoming something far more dangerous to the Dominion, an organized rebellion with leaders, with plans, with hope. The Dominion still saw Earth as a broken world, its people cowed and obedient, its will crushed beneath the weight of occupation. They did not see what was coming. They did not see the old soldiers who drilled recruits in the dead of night. They did not see the engineers crafting makeshift railguns from stolen Dominion tech. They did not see the encrypted messages passing between hidden cells carrying order strategies, blueprints for stolen warships. The first real test came in the frozen wilderness of Siberia, a Dominion outpost lightly guarded, filled with supplies, weapons, and most importantly technology that could turn the tide. Marcus led the strike team, moving through the snow like ghosts. Rifles, steady breath controlled the Dominion guards, never saw them coming. Silent takedowns, rapid strikes. Within minutes the base was theirs. Inside they found more than they had hoped: a Dominion shuttle, intact, fully operational, the first real victory, not just a raid, not just a hit and run, but a conquest, proof that humanity could do more than survive, proof that they could fight back on the Dominion's own terms. The response was immediate. Dominion forces swept across the region, hunting for those responsible. Patrols doubled security, tightened executions, carried out in the streets, but the resistance had already vanished, moving deeper into the shadows, taking what they had stolen and preparing for the next strike. Word spread quickly: the attack on the Siberian outpost was not just a victory, it was a message. Humanity was not defeated. Humanity was not done. The stolen shuttle was reverse-engineered its systems, studied its weaknesses, logged every circuit, every power source, every hidden command, was another step toward turning Dominion technology against them. In the bunkers of the Resistance, the mood shifted. What had once been whispered dreams of freedom became battle plans, war maps spread across tables, old military officers pointing at key Dominion facilities, arguing over logistics, weapons, resources. Evelyn and her team worked through the night, adapting Dominion energy weapons to human hands, refining shield generators. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. Marcus watched the flickering map before him. The network was growing faster than expected. Soon, they would not just be reacting to Dominion rule, they would be dictating the next move. Soon the galaxy would understand what it had done when it chose to enslave humanity. Soon the stars themselves would tremble at what they had unleashed. The Dominion still believed humanity was nothing more than a nuisance. Isolated attacks on patrols and outposts were dismissed as desperate acts of defiance, not the beginnings of an organized war. But Marcus Vance knew better. He stood in the underground war room, watching as Resistance commanders marked targets across a digital map. Dominion supply lines, power stations, fuel depots, all vulnerable, all ripe for destruction. It was time to show the invaders that Earth would not remain silent any longer. Evelyn Carter moved between workstations, overseeing the final adjustments to their modified weapons. Dominion rifles stripped down and reassembled to function in human hands, stolen energy cells repurposed into explosives. The stolen Dominion shuttle from the Siberian raid was now fully operational, its transponder codes intact, allowing it to slip past enemy scanners. They would use the enemy's arrogance against them, strike from the inside, and disappear before the Dominion could react. The target was a major Dominion supply hub in the African wastelands, once the heart of a thriving megacity, now little more than scorched ruins. The Dominion used the site as a staging ground for planetary operations. Armored transports, filled with weapons, fuel, and food, meant for their war machine. If the Resistance could cripple it, they would send a clear message: Earth was not theirs to control. The strike team moved under the cover of night, the stolen shuttle drifting through Dominion airspace, undetected, its crew disguised in salvaged Dominion armor, breathing steady as they descended into the enemy stronghold. Marcus led the charge, his rifle steady. As they emerged from the craft, security checkpoints were bypassed with stolen access codes. Resistance infiltrators spreading through the base, placing explosives on critical support structures. The first explosion sent a shockwave through the facility. Fire and shrapnel tearing through Dominion machinery. Alarms blared as guards scrambled to respond, but the Resistance was already in motion, moving like ghosts through the chaos, striking from the shadows, disappearing before return fire could find them. Evelyn's team hacked into the Dominion mainframe, extracting encrypted data before wiping the system clean. Dominion officers shouted in their guttural alien tongue, trying to coordinate, but their communications were jammed. Marcus took position near the command center, his weapon raised as Dominion reinforcements rushed in. They had underestimated humanity for too long. He pulled the trigger, energy rounds cutting through their ranks, clearing a path to the evacuation point. Resistance fighters detonated their final charges, fuel reserves igniting in a chain reaction that engulfed the entire compound in fire. The stolen shuttle rose from the inferno, engines roaring as it carried the team to safety below them. The Dominion supply hub collapsed in on itself, reduced to rubble in mere minutes. News of the attack spread faster than the Dominion could suppress it. Other resistance cells took inspiration, launching their own strikes across the planet. Dominion convoys ambushed refueling stations, sabotaged data networks, infiltrated for the first time in history. The invaders found themselves on the defensive, forced to acknowledge that the humans were more than just an inconvenience. In the hidden war room deep beneath the mountains, Marcus and Evelyn reviewed the stolen data schematics for Dominion warships' weaknesses in planetary defenses, strategic vulnerabilities. They had taken more than just supplies, they had taken knowledge. The key to bringing down their oppressors piece by piece. Earth was still occupied, but no longer silent. Humanity was no longer simply resisting, they were fighting back, and for the first time, the Dominion knew fear. The Dominion still refused to see the truth. They treated the attacks as isolated incidents, blaming rogue elements, instead of acknowledging the rising storm. But the reality was undeniable. The resistance was no longer a scattered rebellion. It was a growing force. And now it was ready to strike at the heart of the enemy's power. Marcus Vance stood before the gathered fighters, their faces lit by the glow of the holographic war map before them. This time, they would not just destroy a supply hub. This time, they would take something far more valuable. Their target was a Dominion research facility, hidden beneath the icy surface of Antarctica. Here, the invaders developed new technology, experimented with advanced weaponry, and most importantly, stored classified data on the weaknesses of their own ships. If humanity could seize this knowledge, they could turn the enemy's power against them. Evelyn Carter studied the stolen schematics, memorizing access points, ventilation shafts, power grids, everything they needed to infiltrate without being detected. The plan was dangerous but simple. A small team would infiltrate through underground tunnels, bypassing external defenses, while a secondary force created a diversion by attacking Dominion patrols in nearby regions. Once inside the facility, they would extract as much data as possible and escape before the Dominion reinforcements could arrive. But Marcus knew deep down escape was not guaranteed. They were walking into the lion's den, and they would have to fight their way out. The infiltration team moved silently through the frozen tunnels, cutting through layers of ice and rock, their breath visible in the frigid air. Dominion sensors lined the walls, but Evelyn had devised a way to scramble them just long enough for the team to slip through. As they reached the main structure, they saw the scale of the operation: massive containment units filled with alien weaponry, starship components, glowing energy cores that pulsed with raw power. This was more than just a research station. It was a weapons factory. The resistance wasted no time setting explosives on key power nodes, while Evelyn's team hacked into the Dominion database. The information they uncovered was staggering: blueprints for Dominion warships, tactical weaknesses, hidden flaws in their energy shielding, even coordinates for supply routes, and hidden military installations. Marcus realized this facility was a goldmine, the key to shifting the war in humanity's favor. But before they could retreat, the alarm sounded. The Dominion had discovered them, and they were coming fast. The first wave of guards stormed in, weapons blazing, energy bolts searing through the air. Marcus led the defense, taking cover behind a crate and firing with deadly precision. Resistance fighters held their ground, using stolen Dominion rifles against their former owners. But the enemy numbers kept growing. The facility was on full lockdown, and escape routes were being sealed off. They had only minutes before they were completely surrounded. Evelyn uploaded the stolen data onto a secured drive, while Marcus coordinated an escape route through an emergency access shaft. It was their only chance. The team fell back, covering each other as Dominion reinforcements flooded the halls. The explosives were set, and with a final command they detonated the charges. The facility trembled as shockwaves tore through its structure, sending fire and debris into the frozen sky. The surviving resistance fighters emerged from the tunnels just as the entire facility collapsed behind them, burying Dominion technology secrets and soldiers under tons of ice. They had done more than steal information. They had crippled one of the Dominion's most critical research sites, and the invaders knew it. This was no longer a rebellion in the shadows. This was war, and for the first time it was a war humanity could win. The destruction of the Antarctic research facility sent shockwaves through the Dominion's command structure. They had ignored humanity for too long, treating them as a minor nuisance. But now they saw the truth. Earth was no longer just resisting, it was fighting back and winning. Dominion supply chains were in disarray, their communication networks compromised, their outposts under constant attack. What was once a peaceful occupation had turned into a full-scale war. Marcus Vance stood aboard the Resistance's first warship, the Resolute, a vessel built from salvaged Dominion technology, its hull reinforced with stolen energy, shielding its weapons modified to punch through enemy armor. It was a symbol of humanity's defiance, proof that they were no longer bound to the ground. They had taken back the stars, and now they would use them to strike harder than ever before. Evelyn Carter stood beside him, analyzing the latest intelligence stolen from the research facility. Dominion forces were stretched thin, their fleets occupied with uprisings on other occupied worlds. Inspired by humanity's rebellion, entire colonies had risen up against their oppressors. The Resistance was no longer fighting alone. They had ignited a fire that spread across the galaxy, and now they had an opportunity to strike a blow that would shake the Dominion to its core. The target was Orion's Gate, a massive hyperspace junction that served as the primary transit route for Dominion reinforcements and supplies. If the Resistance could take control of it, they could sever the Dominion's grip on Earth and the surrounding systems. But it would not be easy. The station was heavily guarded, protected by an entire fleet of Dominion warships. It was a battle they could not win through brute force. They would have to outthink their enemy. Marcus led the fleet forward, using stolen Dominion transponder codes to slip past the outer defenses, while hidden strike teams infiltrated the station itself, disabling security systems and sabotaging key systems. The plan was to hit fast and hard, cutting off Dominion reinforcements before they could respond. Evelyn coordinated the cyber attack, hacking into the station's network and shutting down its automated defenses, turning the Dominion's own security grid against them. The battle erupted as the Dominion finally realized the deception warships clashing in the void energy cannons, lighting up the darkness. The Resolute led the charge, weaving through enemy fire and striking at key targets. Dominion cruisers moved to intercept, but the Resistance ships were faster, more unpredictable, using guerrilla tactics adapted from their ground battles. For every human ship lost, 3 Dominion vessels fell in return. Inside the station, the infiltration teams fought their way to the control center, battling Dominion elites in brutal close-quarters combat. Marcus himself led the final push, taking the command chamber in a hail of stolen Dominion fire. With a single command, the hyperspace gates were locked. Dominion reinforcements cut off their supply lines. Severed, Orion's Gate had fallen. The Dominion fleet faltered without reinforcements or coordination. Their warships broke ranks, retreating in disarray for the first time in history. The invaders were running. The Resistance had done more than win a battle. They had shattered the illusion of Dominion invincibility. Across the galaxy, oppressed species rose up against their masters, inspired by humanity's defiance. The war was no longer just about Earth. It was about the future of every world under Dominion rule, and for the first time victory felt within reach. The fall of Orion's Gate sent shockwaves through the Dominion's ranks. What was once a smooth and controlled occupation had become a nightmare for the invaders. Their supply lines were in chaos, their reinforcements stranded, their fleets forced to fight without coordination. Humanity had done the impossible. They had taken the fight to the stars and won, but Marcus Vance knew this war was far from over. The Dominion would not allow such a defeat to go unpunished. From the bridge of the Resolute Marcus studied the incoming reports. Dominion forces were retreating across multiple battlefronts, but their response was inevitable. Their empire stretched across countless systems, their resources vast, and their wrath absolute. They would regroup, they would retaliate, and they would bring destruction on a scale Earth had never seen. Evelyn Carter analyzed the stolen data from Orion's gate, searching for any weakness that could be exploited. They would not survive another direct battle against a full Dominion fleet. They needed something bigger, something decisive. That was when they found it. Deep within the Dominion archives, buried beneath layers of encryption, was a classified military directive, a project known as Nemesis, a fleet of experimental warships capable of wiping entire civilizations from existence. And the first of these ships was nearing completion in a hidden shipyard orbiting the gas giant of Seraphis. If the Dominion deployed Nemesis, Earth would be doomed. The Resistance had no choice but to strike first. The plan was bold and reckless, but it was their only chance. Using the stolen transponder codes from Orion's gate, the Resolute and a small strike force would infiltrate the Seraphis shipyard, posing as a returning Dominion vessel. Once inside, they would sabotage Nemesis before it could be activated. It was a suicide mission, but Marcus did not hesitate. If they failed, there would be no Earth left to save. The Resolute drifted through the void, slipping past Dominion sentries under the guise of a damaged patrol ship. The station loomed ahead, a massive structure orbiting the swirling storms of Seraphis' automated defenses, scanning every incoming vessel. Evelyn worked quickly, feeding false data into the security systems, masking their approach. The moment they cleared the outer perimeter, Resistance strike teams launched in stolen Dominion dropships, descending onto the shipyard surface. Without warning, the Resistance had infiltrated the enemy's most secret facility. Inside the station, the team moved fast, planting explosives on critical power relays, disabling defensive batteries, and hacking into the main control hub. But the Dominion was prepared. The alarm blared through the facility as squads of elite enforcers swarmed the corridors, energy weapons lighting up the darkened halls. Marcus led the charge through the Chaos rifle in hand, covering Evelyn as she uploaded a virus into the mainframe designed to corrupt the Nemesis command systems. The ship would never leave the station, but the Dominion would not let them escape without a fight. The battle raged as explosions tore through the facility, escape routes collapsing under the weight of destruction. The Resistance had done what they came to do, but at a heavy cost. Marcus and his team barely made it back to the Resolute as fire consumed the shipyard. Nemesis was lost, buried in the wreckage of its own creation. The mission was a success, but the cost of victory was rising, and Marcus knew the Dominion's next move would be even more ruthless. The war was not over, not yet. The destruction of Nemesis was a crippling blow to the Dominion, but Marcus Vance knew it would not end the war. If anything, it had enraged the invaders beyond reason. Their forces no longer moved with cold, calculated precision. They struck with fury, burning entire human settlements. In retaliation, wiping out Resistance outposts with overwhelming firepower. They were no longer trying to pacify Earth. They wanted to make an example of it. Evelyn Carter studied intercepted transmissions. The Dominion was regrouping their surviving fleets, massing near Luna, preparing for a final strike on Earth. If they succeeded, there would be no more Resistance, no more battles, no more humanity. The war would end in fire and extinction. But the Dominion had made a mistake in their arrogance. They had gathered nearly all their forces into one location, giving the Resistance a single clear target. If they could strike first, they could turn the tide of the entire war. The plan was madness, but so was allowing Earth to be destroyed. Every remaining Resistance fleet, every hidden warship, every stolen Dominion cruiser was gathered for one final battle, a desperate gamble against an overwhelming enemy. The fleet was small compared to the Dominion armada, but it was faster, more adaptable, filled with soldiers who had nothing left to lose. Marcus stood on the bridge of the Resolute staring at the enemy fleet through the reinforced viewport. This was it. Everything they had fought for came down to this moment. The Resistance moved first, striking the Dominion's outer defenses. Before they could react, coordinated squadrons weaving between towering warships, unleashing precise, devastating attacks. Evelyn led the cyber assault from the Resolute hacking into Dominion, targeting systems, forcing their weapons to fire upon their own allies. Confusion spread through the enemy ranks as ships turned on each other. Chaos erupted as fire filled the void, explosions tearing through the darkness. But the Dominion was not so easily broken. Their fleet reorganized, bringing overwhelming firepower to bear. Resistance ships were torn apart one by one. Every second was a costly sacrifice, but the Resistance pressed on, pushing deeper into enemy lines. They had one goal: to breach the command ship at the heart of the Dominion fleet and take down its admiral. Without leadership, the Dominion forces would collapse. Marcus knew this was their only chance, and he would lead the assault himself. Aboard a stolen Dominion dropship, Marcus and his strike team infiltrated the enemy command vessel, fighting their way through the corridors of the alien warship. Dominion soldiers fell before them, but the cost was brutal. Resistance fighters cut down as they pushed toward the bridge. They had come too far to turn back now. The doors to the command center burst open, and there stood the Dominion admiral, towering and monstrous eyes filled with contempt for humanity. Marcus raised his weapon, but the alien was faster, hurling him across the room with unnatural strength. The fight was brutal, every strike sending shockwaves through Marcus's body, but he refused to fall. Humanity had been underestimated since the beginning, treated as weak, as lesser, but they had survived. They had fought back, and now they would win. With a final burst of strength, he drove his blade deep into the admiral's chest, ending the battle with a single decisive strike. The Dominion command ship faltered, its fleet thrown into chaos. Without orders, the Resistance had done the impossible. They had turned the tide of the war. The Dominion fleet was crumbling. Without leadership, their warships drifted in chaos, some trying to reorganize, others retreating. But the Resistance was relentless, pressing the attack with everything they had. Marcus Vance stood on the bridge of the Asterisk, resolute Asterisk, his body battered from the fight against the Dominion admiral, but his mind focused on one thing: ending this war once and for all. Evelyn Carter's voice came through the comms. Their cyber warfare teams had seized control of the Dominion's central battle network, overriding command signals and spreading false orders. Dominion ships were firing on each other, turning their overwhelming numbers into confusion and disorder. Marcus knew they had an opportunity, one final push to break the Dominion's hold on Earth forever. He gave the order. Every Resistance ship, every fighter, every last weapon turned toward the heart of the Dominion fleet and struck with full force. Explosions tore through the void as Dominion cruisers collapsed under the relentless assault. Resistance pilots weaved through enemy fire, landing devastating blows on weakened warships. Boarding teams infiltrated disabled vessels, capturing or destroying what remained. The Dominion's fleet was no longer an armada, it was a graveyard. Marcus watched as their strongest battleship broke apart in a chain reaction of fire and debris. The war was no longer a battle for survival, it was a battle for victory. But the Dominion was not finished. A single transmission cut through the chaos, a message broadcast from the last remaining Dominion command vessel. It was not a surrender, it was a threat. If they could not have Earth, they would burn it. A massive energy spike was detected from the remaining warship, a doomsday weapon primed to fire directly at the planet, a final act of destruction to erase humanity in defeat. Evelyn worked frantically to hack the weapon's controls, but there was no time. The weapon would fire in minutes, and nothing could stop it from orbit. Marcus made his decision without hesitation, taking the strike team aboard a Dominion assault craft and launching directly toward the enemy command vessel. Dodging through wreckage and enemy fire, they slammed into the hull, cutting their way inside. The ship was barely defended, its crew focused entirely on preparing the weapon for activation. Marcus and his team moved fast, fighting through the corridors toward the main control center. Dominion engineers fell before them, but the countdown continued. The weapon was moments from firing. Evelyn's voice came through the comms. They needed to disable the power core. Marcus reached the central chamber and saw it, a massive energy reactor pulsing with unstable power. There was only one way to stop it: overload the core and take the entire ship down with it. Resistance fighters planted charges across the structure, but as the final seconds ticked away, Marcus realized someone needed to stay behind to manually detonate the sequence. The team argued, but Marcus was firm. This war needed to end, and he was ready to make the sacrifice. The team evacuated, leaving Marcus alone in the chamber, staring at the pulsating core. His mind was clear. Humanity had fought for this moment. They had proven they were more than survivors. They were warriors with a final breath. He activated the detonator. Fire consumed the ship in a blinding explosion, tearing through the darkness. And taking the weapon with it, the threat to Earth was gone. The Dominion was broken, and across the stars the echoes of humanity's victory rang out. They had been underestimated, but now they stood undefeated.